Hello, this is Robert Gerard, Michael Hartley III, Bulldog Bob, Handsome Hartley. If you want to, I like that one. I love you, and I'm Bob. I love everybody. I love you all specifically. So uh, tonight it's time to go on the offensive, and now, and with our greatest powers and our spiritual weapons. Hi, Tammy. Love and hope and confidence in Him. So we'll spell that out. And our hope hearing. You know, we have been in the yellow house of hope. It's a journey, and every room represents a time that we met God and a new face of God. It's seasons in our life, and it is representative of the whole humanity. They all go through these seasons. And we are in the hope hearing room. It was the hearing room in the nations, and now it's to be the hope hearing room. Akua, good to see you and love you. And Angie, bless you. Sonia, Vigio, I love, boy, you gotta tell me how to pronounce that. So I honor that name. So just to dive right in, when the Lord's visited, and I'm just going to direct you to overviews, because many of you just say, hey, David, I'm seeing some names. I'm just going to say this, we're figuring out kind of the technicalities, and we always ask for hope ambassadors or hope pastors, because it's increasing who is, just writing into not me, but a team that believes in something together, that has come into agreement, and a group of people, that there are 1,000 hope centers. There is a hope reformation happening. And so we just need to be able to see the journey of where we've been at as the body of Christ, and where God progressively has taken us, and what He's inviting the world into. And we get to see in this election some wonderful opportunities for growth, and for our eyes to be open to who God is. Kim Ireland, good to have you here. Glory from Arizona. Affectionate Arizona, or awesome Arizona, one or the other. So the name God has given each nation. So our state, and that's what we want to stick with. So let me just share and say, one, we are over the next season till January 20th, we are focusing on developing hope hearing. It will change your life, and it's based on the premise. Erica Greaves, love you, or Eric Groves. So Nan Cooper, glad to see you, and Hope Family, and Linda Everline. Great prayers with these guys today. We spent a couple hours praying. It was awesome. So not just praying, going into the courts of heaven and proclaiming with Him. So one, who are we? What are we about? Well, I want to give you 5 questions to ask the Lord every day. Number one, what's on your heart? You're the potter, I'm the clay. Make me, shape me, mold me. 1 Corinthians 15:31. That's Joshua, or that's Jeremiah 18. Potter and the clay. And then 1 Corinthians 15:31, as Paul said, I die daily. And that was to who he was outside of him. Anywhere in his body, soul, spirit. And he just says, fashion me. Fashion my heart, O God, as David said. So we ask him what's on his heart. So John Fitzgerald Kennedy, just when he asked not what you can do for, or your nation can do for you, which is a blanket reality of that could be both sides if we're not careful, but what we can do for our country. So that's, and I think we're doing awesome. So I don't want to make that out to me being better or like, So just number one is just for all of us to ask God, what's on your heart? Isaiah 64:7. How do I stir myself up to seek you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? You're a real person, God, humanity, God. You got a real heart, real vibrant, alive heart. And we just want to bless our Father's heart. I want to bless my dad's heart. We want to bless his heart. So that's the first question. Second is, how's he doing it? So I'll tell you the response. And Kua, one of our scribes, if we would write this down, and we have it, if you look up Akua in OneDrive, the 5 questions, it's what's been on his heart that he's been unfolding for our earth in this time and season is one. And I'm going to share this with you. I've shared it with 12 nations, the leadership, over every year I'd come and I'd share this with them. And then I've shared it with, 10, 20 major movements, and they adopted it as really what was God doing in this hour. And then there's been 1,000 Hope Reformation, Hope Centers come forth. So there was a fire of life coming forth to bring us from revival, keeping that to Reformation. And again, we're going to make our webpage very clear so you can see the progression of the prophetic and the heart of the Lord and opening up what he called a Hope Reformation. So what's on his heart is a new expression, a new expression and history of to Christianity, change the face or the nature and the expression of Christianity in a generation. Now, I was with Mike Bickle and a pastor for 9 years, and he shared that. And I had been on my own in the Song of Solomon, and then in Hosea 2, and I got convinced as a young believer. Now, there was more to find out, but just when Mike shared that, I knew the nature he wanted to change of Christianity that was based on the knowledge of God, a healed and expanded view of God, the person of God. I would just got birthed into a kingdom to know a person and know our God. And I felt like what I got fed was principles, other things. And I was just so lonely for him. And so I went on my own personal journey, just out of desperateness to spend 6 hours a day writing him poems, songs, studying his nature, and just, I wanted to become a scientist of the knowledge of God, but a heart scientist. So one is he wants a healed and expanded, the new nature is a healed and expanded nature of God. He's just not the God of redemption. He's just not the God of the corner of the church. And if you see him as just the Redeemer versus the God of hope, then you think it's going to be apocalyptic devastation because he just wants to save souls and more, and they have a harvest and get us out of the wicked earth. But there's a second place, but you can only see it through a second lens, through the nature of God, as God is the God of hope. And Bob Jones says 16, or that virtue, one of the immoral virtues, was buried, has been buried for 6,000 years. And he commissioned me. I was a youth, young adult pastor, did a bunch of other stuff. Church had really grown. He said, you're to find him as the God of life in all the city and all the nations. And I knew, and I had already known, that I was getting another ruin in the midst of the congregation because it was kind of the charismatic God that Joshua 5:12, when you went from the manna, which is good charismatic stuff we want to keep, but out to the land, it said the fields had to produce, the land had to produce, and the manna stopped. So this healed and expanded God, we see not only as God the Redeemer in Song of Solomon 1, You see him as God the builder. Now he starts to build the house and advance us. The God of hope, that he's confident in who he is in the midst of the day. There's 27 temporal hopes that have been put off to the millennium or to after the age come, and it's just not real. John 11 says, "I'm the resurrection and life today. Your inheritance is now." And you walk into it, the kingdom on the earth, as much as it is in heaven. That's a lot. So the point is, the God of hope will give you the ability to not be afraid of a world that's already afraid, and your salvation or your relationship with God becomes not about a one-time experience where you were redeemed and then you just kind of hang on and have a distant God and you fight for his purposes. No, each day draw we nearer and nearer. We have a greater inheritance in who he is. And so then we meet the God of hope. And the God of hope takes you from Song of Solomon 1, where you're in the chamber, you get loved by him, you get healed. But then he says, chamber 2, you go out into the city, Song of Solomon 2, and you try to do Psalms 24, that open up the gates of the city. He's the God of all of life. It's not dominionism. It's bringing Psalm 67, that there'll be a time where they see his face and he'll want his hearts and ways. And it'll be so much better. So much better. And so, because we love people, we don't let go of him in this life. And that's by living out not these religious, morbid lives. It's all apocalyptic devastation and doom. And we look worse than the barnyard mule, just sad and upset. The little girl went out to the barnyard mule and said, "I see you too have religion." We're the most joyous people on earth through all the circumstances, situations, because we're advancing, and we're advancing in the right ways. There's spiritual gifts that he's given us since he was resurrected. There's everything pertaining to the life of godliness. There's lands, inheritance, wealth. There's inheritance in the knowledge of him. There's inheritance in our relationships. There's, again, 27 that are outstanding. And you meet the God of supply. You meet the God of restorative hope. You meet the God who is able to be the builder of cities, radiant cities, redeemed cities. It's all over Isaiah 61. It's all over the place. And so we're just looking at Matthew 24 and 25. He called for sheep nations and goat nations. Well, we focus on the goat. Well, there's sheep nations. Could be a lot of them. I have my sense. And there's sheep cities. Who wouldn't want God if they really met him? Through all the hurt and all that, he's a delight. He's a lily of the valley. He's a rose of Sharon. And so just what's on his heart? Change the nature, heal and expanded view of God, see the thousand faces of God, the God that loves diversity, the God that loves to build, the God that opens up, the God of life, of blind eyes. I could go on. There's 12 new faces of God for this season. So we're all about exploring those faces of God and then opening them up to you, because the more you see him, like I did as the benevolent king, then I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I wasn't backsliding. I was building and creating wealth for the sake of others. I never took time myself. That's what I did, and we do. So I'd been a pauper and I couldn't fix my wife's teeth or the car. And I said, this isn't your nature. It just wasn't life abundantly. And we receive 100 times more in this life in Matthew 10:30. So who is God? How do we find him? Where do we find him? And how do we worship him? He's God who loves diverse worship, our gifts. So healed and expanded view of God. And in our webpage, we're going to have this adoration flow so you can see the progression and the knowledge of God and gain the golden tools to be able to apply it yourself. And thousands, Heidi and Roland, Georgianne, Winnie, different ones got them, taught it to their people because they knew if they would know the knowledge of God, that they'd be above everything, any issue, problem, everything. And it was just, we would worship, adore together, and it just got you above the issue. So healed and expanded view of God. Second, we are changing the nature of Christianity. We're agreeing with God, who says it's not misery Christianity, which is doubt addicts. It's addicted to doubt. It's worse than heroin, and it's a socially accepted drug. Hope is confidence in the goodness of Him. We've filled the bottle of tears. Now it's time to fill the bottle of joy and go into sunlit fields. And I would say it's easier to die for Him than to live for Him, happy and filled with hope and contentment, because the spirits of negation and our age is ruled only for a short time. There's going to be those tonight that begin to disagree with this misery, and they're going to see the importance of hope, confident expectation in the goodness of God in the land of the living, and it sees an unseen world. We're not moved by hope, sees in the dark. And so God has showed us what we're to be a part of building and co-laboring with Him, and we stay the course. And we don't be Esau and give up on our inheritance because the doubts creep in. So that nature of Christianity, or expression of Christianity, where it's more religious to see how evil and corrupt people are, magnifies and worships the enemy and his ability to deceive greater than God's ability to lead. Now, we're seeing levels of evil in politics being pulled back, which is gruesome. However, it's a dot of evil compared to the whole sky and everywhere being filled with the greatness of God. And God changes the hearts of kings and queens, and we hope in people. You hope in me. I was way off, way off, and then changed my heart. And I'm not saying I'm totally on. I'm on loving Him, but I'm just progressive revelation, having more of what it means to be a gentle man, a kind man. And in this hour, the expression of Christianity, I'm just looking, what are we representing to the world? And this is part of the word of the Lord. And he said at the end of my bed, just said, I don't want everybody to be so angry. I don't want it to be tit for tat. I don't want my children getting so tired by being on these Philippians 1 battle room. And it says, let's not be alarmed by our opponent. Don't get in the battle with him. Get in your heavenly place. And you war with your worship. You war with, there's a number of spiritual blessings, but we're going to identify worship or adoration, which is proclaiming the nature of God into a situation. And we command angel armies, release the angel of the presence, or the knowledge of God from Isaiah 11, that goes to that person and just covers them with the opportunity to see Him. And then the demons clear and they get an opportunity to make a good choice. And I would love to tell you the testimonies that when I shifted and I just would see somebody that was off balance, a mayor or a leader or whoever it might be, and they were hurting themselves, I would just bind the enemy and command the angel armies to go and deliver them from that, because we can do that. And then to have those ministering angels of the presence of the Lord, or the Isaiah 11 and the knowledge of God, come to them. And all these lies about Him. I've seen leaders in nations. I've seen whole churches. I've seen whole cities, 2 of them, where they bowed their knee and invited Him in because they liked Him and they wanted Him and they liked His ways. He is awesome. So then they're filled with hope. It's like the upper room. You're filled with hope that overflows into joy because you're just confident in these 5 hopes that we'll have for this next hour or two. So I ask you to renounce the apocalyptic doom. I ask you to renounce focusing on how bad it is. You know, He knows how we get the prayers or how bad it is. I ask you to renounce that. I ask you to be a good king or queen, son or daughter, and you proclaim thanksgiving for what God has done, and you bring back those memories. And that's not a lie. There are awesome things in the last 150 years that have happened to grow us in a way that is remarkable. Free of slavery, child mortality. Now, do we have a ways to go? Yes. Wendy, I miss you. Help me with curriculum. We'll talk later. So that's first question. Second question is, who's he doing it through? He's bringing forth 50 million hope reformers that will help 50 nations invite him in, and 7 cities soon. And they will be radiant cities where everywhere is God, and he won't be lonely. He'll be loved in those places. 2, who's he doing it through? I raise your hand tonight. Just come into the agreements with hope. He's doing it through hope reformers. Those are addicted to doubt and fear, or have their hope in us being annihilated and our children. That I would just ask you to reconsider that Darby was wrong. Matthew 24 and 25 has been misinterpreted, and that we will have on our webpage our progression of the Hope Reformation, which 8 theologians wrote a paper. We got a book, and that if you get anything tonight, know that you don't have to live in misery. You live in hope with your family. That's part of your inheritance and lineage. And we just need, from a dream of 2000 about this time, that we chose hope and redeemed radiant cities versus apocalyptic devastation. And so if we see apocalyptic devastation out there, I'm trying to get it. It's like 1 Kings 18. They'll bring the offering a few times and put water on it. It's just a moment to wait. So who's he doing it through? Hope reformers. They have 3 things. I'm not going to get into it. It's taking a while, but see a long ways out. There's a couple other things. So get on our webpage and we'll describe that. How's he doing it? It's Friday nights is a time that we're to be together, and people are speaking to each other and encouraging each other, and there's prayers for one another. So it's Jay, good to see you on there, and Zena, and appreciate you guys just letting me know you're there. And Fran, you're awesome. Friday nights is a time where we're going to be in this yellow house room of hope hearing. And what really happened when I walked into this room, it's been this journey that I'm writing a book on. I don't care about writing a book. It just is. He said, if everybody be healed if they went through it, or if I went through it, and help people bring through this play therapy and the building up of kings and queens and joy. And so the room we're in now is the Hope Hearing Room. And the Lord brought me in it, and he said, you're on channel 6, through the sun come, and it's channel a man in confusion. And, when we're led by the mind first, and I was an academician, and all my family been educators, and it's just too easy if we lose sight of our relationship with him. I want to have 20 hours of intimacy with him to 1 hour of prophecy, because it's speaking his heart. But also, just when we're making statements out there, I just want to feel nearer him and drawn to him. And I know Jay does. I know we all want to do compassion, not react. We're not reactors to what's all, the time or the hour we're in. We're definitely not reacting to hate and to conversation that's just not wise and put downs. It's a wonderful opportunity for those who love Jesus, those who might love or not know him, or whoever, just a human decency, to be kind and celebrate the value of a human being. And it's from the right to the left. We're going to have an attunement party come forth. It's going to attune to everybody and on a different level, with compassion, but with also, what's right. And that's really important. So just in this room, and I'll post it, Boogie Lee is that Stephen Ranks on. So just this is the opportunity for us to take the next 90 days and do this. Adore him. And I have adoration books, and I'd love to get them to you. If you don't have the money, I'll do my best to help. I have this entry. It's called the Heart of Adoration. It's really good. It tells why we adore. It's got my daughter Taylor on it. And then it goes on to Journey of Adoration, opens us up to that. So first thing, I would just encourage us to adore, or at least ask Jesus who he is and who he says he is. And from those, that, like he told me a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, that I knew 1% of him, that he wanted me to know of him in this lifetime. And you can get the name a leader in the body of Christ, or leader in this way or that way. And then you start to think you've arrived, and me, and to know 1% of him. But I know his essence, and I know that he knows mine. And so in my last month or two, where I've been more overt about the outcome of the election, but I'm not saying everything's right on any way, shape, or form on either side, and I'm not right. It's just we have to ask the question, what's on his heart? And this, I believe, is on his heart for our nation. And then you line up for the God of America, not just a candidate. And so people draw, well, is he saying this because he said this before? Let me just say what I'm going to say is that I dreamed about the election from the year 2000. Again, this is not endorsing anybody, but I dreamed, and by the grace of God, it was right. And so Obama was the people's choice, and then he would spread hope. Hope would win the next election. I do believe there was some hope. I believe it was incomplete, maybe some things misdirected, but definitely hope. But then it had been from the year 2000. Many heard me. It's documented. Got to the Trump card. Again, not about me. I just got to be honest. This is what I heard, and I stand by it. And got to the Trump card, and I was brought up to appreciate somebody's rhetoric being honoring, and so his wasn't. Then second, I was brought up to be inclusive. I've spent enough time in other nations to know they need to feel invited and welcome and loved. And so I felt like he wasn't that much. He'd say, I'd love other nations and stuff, but didn't really know what love was in that case. Like if you've lived in them and with the people and what they've suffered with, it just didn't feel it's strong. And I got him the message, these three things. And the third thing was an economic model where we win and you lose. And I felt like there was more of a benevolent one that could help the nation. And so I still, what I did is I watched and was concerned that, the policies would go too far with cutting other people off from other nations. But then, and I thought the rhetoric was too much, it just is, I think there still needs to be, I think the process is happening. I'll tell you in a second. So, and third, the economic model, we win, you lose. What I started to see is him speak with his feet. And I would find out a policy was enacted, and I wouldn't know if it was by the right or the left. I just know, okay, we're going to care for other nations that I knew in this way. And it was a better program and more help. And it was to righteous places. And then I found out, I went to Guatemala with the Sandinistas and knew about some of the drug trafficking, that the wall was, something that wasn't just we don't want other people. So I started to see policies, started to see it for minority businesses. I know it as well as anybody because I've got a small business. And so there were rights that minority businesses got to help stack the deck in their favor, loans that I couldn't get near. But did I care? I actually supported it because it felt like they hadn't had an equal playing field. My family helped lead civil rights because, that's just not right. People can't live by each other because of the color of skin. So I understood people's fears in our neighborhood because they didn't know what would happen. But those were things that we need to talk about, honestly. We didn't have that kind of discourse this time. So short of it is I saw him speak with his feet, and the Lord had shown me that it'd be the God of the trump card, and then it'd be the God of John. Now, I didn't know Trump's middle name was John. John, everybody about Trump, they'll say he was Cyrus at first, kind of a heathen king, and just kind of help society get back on track, righteousness. And my concern has always been about the other party having some compassion, having some perspective to see all, bring people in, but can't do it all at once. I saw other nations try to do that, and it created chaos. It's like trying to take the giants out all at once. It's like I'd have a business, and every 5 willing workers, I had 120 cleaning buildings. I'd take on one that was a project that didn't really want to work and just try to build them up. But if I did any other of that balance, then I'd lose my business. They wouldn't show up. So the reality was just that I couldn't remember exactly what it's saying. Is that Cyrus, and then he'd go to his middle name, and it was the next term would be the God of John, and John is his middle name. And John was fiery at first, called down fire on Samaria. But then John got tender. And I started to see it happen during the COVID time. And so if someone like Jay or others, if we want the best for our nation, but for human beings, then we don't demonize anybody. I won't with Joe Biden. I won't with any of those. What I'll do is I hope that he becomes his name, John the Beloved, and I believe there's a pathway for him to not have the wrath trappings of a New Yorker in a way that, I don't want to, but he would be able to be his name. And we want that for everything. I dream about Joe Biden a few times saying, I'm not up for this, but all I know is Jesus Christ needs to be everybody's Lord. And I just saw we're either going to have a nation that rages or repents. And this time, repenting is just turning to him. It's a renewed mind. It's seeing a healed and expanded view of God. It's seeing a hope in his ways. And so, you know what, you guys, I got to come back in 30 seconds. You know why? To the restroom. I'll be right back. Talk to each other. I'm still on the call. I'm back. Sorry about that, man. You guys, I want you to be happy to know I wear diapers. No, I'm teasing. Okay, I'm back. So we pray that he becomes John the Beloved. And I believe we've got a time. Thanks, Jay. I think we got a time just to ask for the original design for every human being. And I think it's time to rename cities and nations and people according to his heart. And so Hope Reformers will look at people and I believe there'll be a lot that don't know Jesus or don't claim his name right now because it's been put up by the church or other things. And everybody, I said to my children, if I have hurt you in any way, be mad at me, but not at him. He's just so good. And I didn't represent him all the way to I hope to, but I think we're pretty hard on one another and we'll grow in this time. But let's pray that he becomes John the Beloved. Let's become the most loving people that can ask honest questions and have love win. I trust that love will win in this time. And so, love you, Mike Town. I'm really glad you're on. I've asked the question, what's on his heart? I've asked the question, who's he doing it through? Hope Reformers. And third, I've said how he's doing it. And again, there's movements based on this. We're going from hope, from a revival to reformation. That's where cities and nations will invite him in, and it'll be a whole lot better than we all thought. And he'll be loved on top of it, which is the greatest thing of all. That the one who created us is acknowledged. And I think that we'll let all the people praise him, that all the people enjoy him, like him, love him. We might say, no, that's crazy. That's everybody getting saved. And I'm holding on for all, because Psalms 22:21, 29 says all the families of the earth will call on him. I just don't know how you can't when you see him, even if you have all the treasures of the world. So the increased presence of him, the age of restoration, the presence of him. I just believe that we'll all attune to him in a different way. And when we do that in adoration, we'll be able to attune to each other in a different way. We'll see each other through the filter of God and his loving eyes, his encouraging eyes. And so I can see how Jesus could love his enemies because they'd slap him on one cheek. He could look with the other. He just saw the heart of the Father for them or their original design. And how can you not forgive them? And so he's also doing it through hope hearing. And that's what I'll just share a little bit on tonight. This is a time, these next 90 days, to commit and agree and to take an oath that says, like our oath of allegiance, we'll fight spiritual enemies, because we'll fight that which negates love, that which negates hope, that which negates God. And because that'll hurt people. A man or a woman left to themselves, I just, will love and honor their human decency, but and their search. But the reality is, we're going to hear and hope for people, and we're going to ask questions of hope where we haven't asked the wrong questions. That now internet, we're punishing one another on both sides. They're trying to punish, trying to defeat, put down. And hope, ask the question of God, how much do you love this person I'm about to write to or about? What have they gone through that might have hurt their heart? How can I be a help, not hurt them? How can I see? What do you see about their beauty? What do you love about seeing them come? What do you love about this journey, season in this journey in their life where they're asking, maybe wrong questions, and how can I help them and love them and ask. I don't want to be right or wrong or room. I ask, how can I have a great heart towards them and other cities and nations and people groups? How can I not lump them all together because it seems like, this people group or that people group, I ask you, how are you going to make this better? How are you going to turn this beauty, ashes into beauty? So to get there, where we ask these hope questions and we have this whole new definition of the prophetic, is through a process. And the CENTCOM came for 3 weeks at nights and told me how I was hearing was wrong, according to Channel 6 confusion and critical analysis, negating versus hoping and celebrating and appreciative listening for human beings. He's the greatest miracle of all is to love, and that's to put value on. And when we dismiss value, we can't be led by people that hate. Their offense will creep through, and whether on the right or the left. And so the opportunity in this hour is to pick up our spiritual weapons. And one is adoring him. And then you'll end up proclaiming who he is in you. And you get, like I said, God, I was reactive today about what somebody wrote. And I say, I won't be a harsh man. I will not be a reactive man. Be a man of love, and love is patient. I hopes all things. So then we advance, and then we go to the table of the Lord, and this is the hope hearing place. We just ask him, how you doing? What's on your heart? We're swinging on the front porch. How was your day, Lord? Did I love you well? Then you ask, Lord of the election, how are you bringing hope through this? How are you going to protect hearts so they don't lose hope? And we don't want any suicides amongst church, others. And how can you bear them up and show them that your kindness will carry them and you'll watch out for them? And how can we show your abundantly available face in all the time of the need? How we can put their hands into your hands? How can we do benevolent acts that help them versus hurt them? So you ask those kind of questions, and you ask it from your heavenly position as a son or daughter. It's not asking towards heaven, why weren't you here? And why weren't you for us? When you find out how tender he is, and he suffers more than we do for the things we're going through, it just humbles you so much. So we ask him hope-filled questions from that heavenly place as a son or daughter. And I would ask my dad, and I would expect wisdom. I said, Dad, why are people hating at one time? And it was during the civil rights. And he said, Bobby, they're not hating. They just are hopeless and heading that way. And when they're hopeless, they get afraid, and they like drowning. They want to get out of this place in life, and they feel like others are putting them down, and you look to be blamey. And I said, just if we could turn to God, he's there, and he's got such greater solutions, son. And he said, if you want to change a nation, teach them how to hope, son. And so that's what I listened to him, my grandfather. So just, it's a time to ask him hope-filled questions. And then that will lead us to hope-filled answers. And we won't have the prophetic that's punching everybody in the face. I mean, we all are prophesying. Every time we speak, it's creative words that bring life or death. And that's what the prophetic is supposed to be, that which reveals the nature of Jesus. That's Revelations 19:10. What's the spirit of prophecy? Is the testimony of Jesus. If it's not revealing the nature of him, well, I doubt its origin, where it's coming from, and what. I'll say to people, see him when you heard that, especially about the decrees that I'm hearing that are just the end of the world, the end of other people groups. So tonight, I just would like you to ask and just take this first step in hope hearing. Just ask him how, do this entryway where you adore him and say, you're the God who guides us. And you guide us with the hopeful voice. It says you, Isaiah 50 verse 4, his is nature. He restores the weary one with the word. Well, Jay and all of us, how much would we all like to be Hilmar restored with the word, Robert with the word, just he comes with the word, and it's like hot honey, and comes through our thoughts where they go from those dusty castle thinking to a palace filled with his golden light. His word just goes through us, and it's like honey that heals us. It's like the dew off Aaron's beard where it's harmony. Oh, your five senses will get sensitive to what's really truly his voice. It always creates overflow in us like living water versus drains us. And we're going to spend good time on just shifting. And I believe a spiritual gift is operating right now where I've been granted with the Lord an authority to cut off, be a happy demon slayer, that demon that says you got to negate or be negated. And it's soft, weak prophecy. If you're not condemning somebody, it's no, don't you step out and start to speak until you get hope. And I've had to speak some challenging things to a few people in the interim and tell them I love them with all my heart. That this is challenging, but you'll rise again. And this is how there's always a hope, and there's always a pathway through it, and there's always a solution. And it's just, we do have a word out that we choose life or death. And so I love you all. And I just want you to be able to not be bombarded by your thoughts, the hope questions that he wants to give you. And so I'm going to put some of those on the web page. And I remember the time I went in, this was the progression in prayer. You adore him. That's real. Prayer is fellowship. You're communing with him. You just tell him, you remember when you did this and you supplied for me, or my brother Jay, or Alistair, or Nanette. You remember when you did that? And then he laughs. And so I thought I got away with doing it in secret, something like that. It really is that good. And then you walk in, and what hits you when you adore him, and what's going to hit a lot of the people across the earth is maybe adoring, but Isaiah 6 says, high and lifted up, and he's holy, and it's pure, and it's wonderful. And then people say, woe is me, I'm not as nice as you. Like Isaiah, I don't love the way you love. My lips speak with uncleanness, just out of the heart. Mouth speaks with roughness. And, it's a bum. It says unfaithful messengers, like one with a bum leg and a crooked tooth. Crooked tooth means harshness, spite. And bum leg gets a message there, lay, fear, and doubt. So we just want to be those messengers with hop in our feet, bringing the good news of the great God. And so we're going to see a whole transformation in the way you hear. And the greatest way to change, I know that people get out there understanding about renewing the mind, and then that leads to really transition, then transformation as you get to heaven. But you can go right to transformation in the renewing of your mind by seeing him. That'll do it. You see him, you see his loving kindness. And then I said, I'm not near as loving as you, but your grace is sufficient in me. I'm not going to beat myself, say, dirty, filthy sinner. So my original design is to be loving like you're loving. And I just proclaim this thing called grace, because by my own works, I'm not going to get there. You are the God of love, and you live in me. I'll be known as the most loving man, most patient, compassionate man. And my mind will go to the children in the hospital that are having cancer and others filled with hope, loving to visit them, whoever he might send me to or how he might send me to. It's in a nook or corner. Nobody ever knows about it. Well, it feels the best when you just meet him and hold his hand. You can be like him. So leads to our minds being transformed in that adoring place. And then when we confess just who he is in us, then we feel one with him. Then we sit down at the table. There's no distance. And that's when we have friendship. And that's where the hearing of him comes. It's first the healing in Jeremiah 33:6 for a city. It's the healing of our ear ports and our minds from the residue and the attacks. And it's just this appreciative memories of him, of others, and of our circumstances. He'll make the four key things in life: our promises, circumstances, God, people. He'll show us, like he did to David, all the pieces of our life, how they come together to make a perfect tapestry filled with this hope. That's what appreciative memories do. And so we ask him that. And then and Mr. Odom, if that's Mr., you have another trip to be made to our Hope Shiloh. So don't forget that. It's very important. So, Greg Pulver, I love you. Hey, thank you. Anybody that's taking notes, send them to me as a review, especially Wendy, your Harvard training to help me get pithy, succinct, and to the point. I appreciate you guys' patience. And I just try to cover too much territory, but I want to do a little summary and get to you. You know, to me, I can get to you a word about what's happening, I believe, in our nation. And I believe I'll be right, you know, but I don't think being right is what it's all about. I think what's more important is this opportunity. I dream that we could go to the classroom of hope and he could give us a whole different way to see him and just that release of the knowledge of him. Oh, that's all we want. And to release that with the ones on this line, this Hope family, and I want all of you, the number one gift he's going to give us is the gift of the miracle of marveling at him, of his presence, the ability to put other people's hands in his hands. It says in the days to come that a man will come up to you in Zechariah, or a woman, and try and hold your hem and say, I want to know who you know. And that's number one, is that we know him, and then we can point to him and say, oh, look at him. And to whoever, how far off, one taste of his presence will change the earth, his real personhood. That's one, you being equipped as adoration pillars, and we have a great word about that the Lord gave us. And so, again, on the webpage, we want to be succinct, and I'm talking to Kua, who's on the call, about how just to line that up, and Angie. And if you'd like to volunteer and help us get our notes together, because we had a fire and we have to get it up right away, because I'm doing 2 months of PSA on our TV in Kansas City, Channel 4, 5 to 7 in the morning, 6:30 at the news, and some other times if you can watch that. You know, I just talk about it, hope for our city, and then I direct them to the webpage. And so now the webpage just has mainly the yellow house on there. So help in getting that adoration journey down that people could take. That's not going to hurt anybody, right, left, or wherever. Ones that don't believe in him, well, they'll sure like him. And, you know, they'll be hauled at him, and I've seen it lots of times. You know, those that you would think they're farthest off. And then second is you go into what he's saying. And what you know is nature. So you know, he doesn't speak like that. And so that's where he asks the questions of his heart. And I have a list of those, and I would encourage it. Follow on, and this is an action step. posts. We're going to post this, that this is what we're doing for the next 90 days or however long it is. We are adoring him. Go to the webpage for the tools. We're asking of him at the table of the Lord these hope-filled questions, and we'll post those, but go to the webpage. And then we are proclaiming. Once you ask him at the table of the Lord and you feel a certainty about what he's saying, you don't go out and beg, oh, Father, please help us. Please hear me. Please. It's not beggar prayer. It's not negative prayers. Oh, God, where you're at, welling between the porch and the altar. There's a place where you're earnest and say, God, spare the people. And you know his nature and you're really partnering with him because you know he feels that. So, but it's not pleading like he doesn't hear us. You know, it's such a different, beautiful place and decree, because this is the hour of reformation. And what reformation looks like is things are reformed back to their original design. So governments reform back to its original design. Sometimes it has to get opened up what's not the original design so he can be invited in and help heal that. He's not threatened by any of the negativity and any of the challenges. So we ask him about what he invites us to ask him. And I'll give you a picture of maybe how you can do that. So these are steps that you can take in this next season. You ask him and then you decree. And so in my journeys where I would go to these 10 to 12 nations and meet with their parliaments, I would ask him what he wanted for that nation. And I'd spend a lot of time just because I wanted to be certain as I could be, and had a string of pearls team that were seasoned mature people that would ask me how I heard. And because I'm decreeing things like for Norway, a real change of policy in their Bill of Rights, or it wasn't called Bill of Rights. I got to remember it was almost like for business, your articles of incorporation. You have certain standards. And there was one that was not helpful to the youth. I won't get into it. And so I had gotten called, and I'm going ahead with the story, on the way to an FCA meeting, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, about 6 a.m, real icy cold. I had this crummy car about 10 years ago, and I still got a crummy car. I bought it from my son. I'll be on with him Monday night, and I'm going to give it to him for this car. $3,000 at inspection. I just bought it from the guy. He didn't know. He's an absent-minded professor. Oh man, Bunny Trail Loser. What was I saying? Somebody type it to me real quick. Decreeing. I think I was Shorky. Good to see you. You're a decreer, man. So I love you guys. It makes me feel warm to see you. Yeah. Okay, so Wendy, I was saying about decreeing, right? So you hear the Lord. Oh, and you don't beg. You're partnering with him. Now get this picture, is when my children were little, they come and grab my pants leg and pull on it, daddy, M&Ms, or whatever it might be. But as they got bigger, if they were like that, it would have been painful, because they can be secure. They don't have to ask like that. They know the whole house is yours, everything in it's yours, go for it, just stay away from the peppermint ice cream. So the major next step for us as children of God is when my son was like 13 or 14, and I took him around during the night, we were cleaning properties and he was cleaning with me, and took him around to different ones. And I said, son, this is hard work, working all night. And, You got Toothless Ed and One Tooth Terrence, some rough people. And I said, but he had gone to Denny's. We paid for dinner for him on Friday nights before they went out and worked real hard. Gave him paper plate awards and had talent show amongst these guys that and gals had been on the streets and stuff. But it was so good. And, some of them have never been applauded in their lives. And he saw the beauty of it. And I just said to him, this is my inheritance, son. I've inherited all these friends that just make the Star Wars barroom scene look good, I said, but they get the best hearts. And I said, son, inherit this and inherit, and I just went on. And then we went to Phoenix and he co-labors with me all the way there, speaking the blessing of the Hartley, H&H, it's Hartley businesses and the blessing of our properties and the blessings, and just owned it with me. And, I love anybody that comes along now owns it with me. But that's what we get to do with our Father, own it with him. And he wants Kansas City to be carrying Kansas City. He wants there to be worship in Washington, D.C. Cleveland, I went years ago and I said, you're not the mistake by the lake. You're going to be this with Bob Jones and Mike. And it did it. It was real specific. And then marveling Melbourne, affectionate Australia, who's going to show affection for the United States through this process and fight for the United States. New Zealand, New York. And we'll look at it like Nineveh and say, it can't change. Well, Nineveh changed, And then we look at Philadelphia, Phileo in Philadelphia, that there'll be really godly brotherly love there. And it can happen. It will happen. There's an angel in Isaiah 36 wiped out 185 demons. We can declare, send that angel and wipe out just evil and meanness. And, he'll show us, he'll take us in the spirit as we ask him these questions up to that 50 million mile view, and we'll be able to see into travel over these cities and nations, or we'll travel back to the night of the election and then we'll decree something. And there's no rules. We're not making it up. It's all there in the word, and it just leads us to extended understanding of the possibilities of the prophetic and the power of the word and the created word. So we speak and decree what he's saying, and we'll be real hope ambassadors. And so I want to encourage you to be heralders, to decree. And I have a number of decrees that I'm going to post and ask you to ask the Lord which decrees that you can identify with and you can decree. The first one is a decree about the freedom to worship. And it's just John 4:23, that we can worship in spirit and truth. It's what all the ages have wanted. Psalm 67, that we see his face. 2 Corinthians 11:3, that we never leave simple devotion to him. It's the greatest weapon of love, the love of God that spilled over the earth. It'll blanket the earth. This is our freedom. It's not to be taken from us, and it's not to be negated. It's not to be censored on social media. And that's our first decree and right, to know him and not to be impaired in knowing him. And it's freedom for others to worship an unknown God, and I do believe that it'll be in the end him. And so that's our responsibility now to January 20th. Then after, it'll be other decrees. But for us to co-labor with him, like my son who said, Dad, this business can be this and that. Now he's owning it with me. Now you can't believe what it makes the heart of the Lord feel like when you say, Lord, this will be a place in a city. I release the knowledge of the Lord, the angels of the knowledge of the Lord, to go, and like Song of Solomon 5, for them to cause the daughters of Jerusalem just to get a taste, just general church people who don't have a knowledge of him and don't really have the power of his presence. And will decree the knowledge of him that when I walk into the room, they say, how can I know the one you know? And that's what they said to the Shulamite woman. It's like Peter, his shadow healed a man. We should walk in the room and be Daniel 11:32 or 12:3. It says, those who know him will shine like the stars and illuminate the others. And so that's our first declaration, that we're to be the generation that knows him, knows his heart, and can attune to when our next generation, the Solomon generation, is knowing his heart and knows we're the David generation. Maybe we have some harsh ways, that they can find better ways in him, and they need a permission to know him in wisdom versus just going for it, taking territory. They're to occupy the land. So ask him what's on his heart, and ask him to take you to that heavenly place, and then ask him to just touch you and hold you. Just let's do it now. Or just hold us. We just breathe in you and we breathe out worry or fear or doubts. We just practically on these Friday nights go after just hearing your heart, being devoted to you. Just adore you, the voice, the God who has a voice. The God who speaks, Psalms 29. Speak and shatter the cedars, that your voice is so strong. And your voice is for encouragement and edifying. Such a word to build up, Ephesians 4:29. You wake your weary with the word of Isaiah 50, verse 4. He alone guided us, Exodus 15. You guide your children to pastures where they can fed. It says, the sheep heard your voice, and they rejoiced greatly in John 3:29, like a bride to bridegroom, hearing a voice that's such pursuant love. You just got this passionate pursuing love. You speak with us too, 59% of the time, but all the time you spoke. And you spoke 27% of the time, meeting practical needs like in a nation. With the loaves and the fishes, the coin in the fish's mouth, many other examples. It says you just want to supply, you just want to care for your people in our nation. You don't want any minority, any single mom, any elderly person, or compassion to reign. So we ask you, how's that best in this time, in this hour? We ask you, with the election and the events leading up to it, and we ask you, what's right? What's on your heart? God, how would you like to just cause there to be greater peace and love and harmony? Not the peace, there is no peace, but the real harmony. God, we ask you. I just hear you saying, to command the spirit of negation of one another to be broken. Command the demon of misunderstanding that looks for each other's or perceives each other's intent as evil versus good. We break that in the name of Jesus. The disharmonies demon, that we release and ask you, how can there be good discussions where people love each other's heart and listen well? How can you bring creative solutions that make all parties be at peace around the table, in the sense that they can accept it and they can move forward with it, believe that you're in the midst and you can build with it? We ask you how we honor you in the selection process. We ask you how we get to grow and just flourish in decreeing, where in the past we just sat there and got beat up. You say, wait on you, but be like a waiter on the table. We ask you, What acts of love can we show in this time to people that have disagreed with us, we've disagreed with? We ask you, what places do you want us to go to pray? We ask you for what our hearts are feeling like on both sides, all just this unrighteousness, this ruling of our nation, it feels like, with people, the honesty, integrity is those noble virtues. Just, we ask you that you'd show us the virtues of people, and we ask you to help remind them of the best parts of themselves. Show us the best part of them that we might speak the dream or write it to them of who they are, and they might remember. We ask you for an election that, how do we respond to these daily reports of corrupted machines and ballots, and then Trump not being able to accept the election, and just what people sincerely believe. And we say, what do you believe? What's on your heart, God? We ask you, just in the decreeing of the freedoms, what's the most important freedoms you want us to decree? Along with your face, God who guides us and loves us so much that wants to have free worship so that we can freely know each other and prosper, and that nobody should steal our worship. God, we decree it with you, the deepest knowing of you and the ability for that to be enhanced in our environment. It's a prophetic promise. We decree, God, that it will be awesome Arizona that alls at you and that does what's right. We ask you to be the great one in Georgia, where the recount I saw, and it was still the watchers were still kept so far away. And I ask you for the full story, that you would just bring what's right so that the ballots can be watched. And God, we say that we ask you for that which is that people would say things out of their mouth to confess you and turn to you and just see eternity and love is more important. And that if there's cases where people are holding things and are afraid, that just they be released to speak up and speak with honesty, and that there be civility, and that they just would be awakened. And God, we ask you just again to come with those other freedoms and just to guide us day by day as we pray and we release those. God, I ask you who on here, the ones that I see, just what freedoms are they to live for and proclaim? God, there is Hillmar, and I just had a picture of these different ones in the classrooms and just how they proclaimed and uniquely were given the gift to proclaim what was on your heart in different areas. And so, God, I give this gift to Hillmar the ability to see your original design, like of the awesome God to Antifa, that would show up there, would show up as a beautiful God to BLM. And there be a turning and love of you that's greater than an indignation towards others. God, we say, let him decree that John Trump would come forth. Let him decree that Joyous Joe and Jesus would come forth. Let him decree that Karen Camilla would come forth, where there'd be a transformation for her. Let him decree, Pence, that you had said that John would win, and he'd have a Pence with him. And thought it was a penny. He said, a penny of this man's integrity could save a nation. So we decree that, our God. There's something really pure about that man. We ride on the wings of the Spirit, and we just look to adjudicate from this empowered place with the God who answers, that you will be in the process, and this process will honor you. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, there's prophetic specifics that I will come back and share. And again, we're going to put these things up on the webpage, might take us, but ask for the delightful God to visit Democrats. Ask for the radiant God to visit Republicans, and just see him going in and meeting them in the night in the dreams and with the presence of him. So, God's rallying people. He's not a swear word. He's going to bring the prosperity, and that no weapon formed will prosper, and that the amber waves of grain will come forth. That means there's going to be a great harvest, and there's going to be a Jesus movement with wisdom that comes forth through this process. But we all have a responsibility to just go arm in arm with others. And I know people like my son, he'll ask those questions with me. How can this be the best? And he might not address them to God right now, but he'll ask for a great awakening and an awakening to better cities. And we're discussing what that looks like. But there's a humility to respond, and for us not to be affected by the negation. And just, my son and I have decided, to live just points we want each other to consider. We just say we will, and we'll go away, and we ask, I ask the Lord for a few days, and he comes back with his wisdom answer. So he'll be here on Monday. But proclaim over Philadelphia that the Phileo, the God of brotherly love, will visit. And pray for over this weekend that there just be a great movement for unity and peace in our nation, and harmony and around God's will. And again, there's specific things to share with you. I might write it up there that have been prophetic and have come to pass, but really read Zephaniah 3. It's more to me. It talks woe to the rebellious, but it's like, gosh, stop it, and to a city that doesn't hear his voice and doesn't respond to correction. But then it says, every morning he will bring forth his light and his justice. He will never fail. And the daughters of the dispersed one will come back. And it says, the Lord has taken away your judgments. He's cast out your enemy. And it says, you shall see disaster no more. Do not fear. Let not your hands be weak, because he's in our midst, and he's releasing the joy of the Lord. This is a great adventure. Time for great miracles. It's time for great celebrations. Every day is like Christmas. We wake up and we go down. And this is a posture that we have as we move forward. And we move forward daily, decreeing the freedoms and the promises of the Lord. And he's going to raise us up and give us specific decrees. We'll decree into Philadelphia or into, this MS-13 and some other groups. We just declare, like Nikki is to go there, that led the gang to the Lord. And we just have the opportunity to change a nation through our decrees, and then ask him, send me, and what he might have us direct. And I'll make some suggestions, and you ask the Lord for it. But watch Pennsylvania. I believe there's something over the weekend. I'll just be touching that, the news that's coming out on the right or the left, and those people are dropping Fox and there's other news stations. Well, any of it, just to me, I want it to be researched, and I don't expect necessarily a tremendous amount of passion, but I do ask to bring the people that have wisdom and are examples of truth, or they live by truth, and they have that barometer of common sense where they see the balance, because there's facts and then there's truth. And then I'm declaring that the body of Christ, and some of you I dreamed would lead, like Wayne and others, and just you will be like Judges 5, that you won't wait, you run on the hills of the word of the Lord, and you go for all that we can. And the throwing of the prophets under the bus because they're saying they missed it or this or that, and gosh, let's just love each other and be a little, quit the doubt addict stuff, doubt one another. Just do what you got permission to do. And I believe in unity. We have permission to decree and to decree righteousness in the presidency and the vice presidency, and compassion, and that we got a right to decree that in the house, and there are servants, but we pray for our leaders. We got a right to decree in our land proper ways, the Psalm 67, and those are specific, and it's not hard to sometimes see unrighteous ways and righteous ways. And that's our responsibility. Like my son with the inheritance, or Esau, we don't give up on it. We decree it into place, and then we take any action he tells us to take. So consider being a hope benefactor. I've tried to, just build, because there's a lot of people looking for hope, and we got it. And now we're saying, help us so we can get the administration in place, get the tools in place so that we can really feed the people well. And that's a hope benefactor. And thank you to those who have been that. And hope subscriber. And we found a glitch in our software. So, the hope subscribers that are on the call, it's really a hope development program. It's you write in and you're answering questions, and we'll give you some things to study, but we're taking you from A to B prophetically. It's the best way, where we'll ask the Lord where you're at, where do you go, and how you're to get there. So we really have crafted questions, crafted tools, and ways to ask the Lord. And it's the most powerful thing, because it develops kings and queens. And it's prophetically into the heart. We really fashion out monthly just your word that goes and it builds on the word in the past. So a hope subscriber gets a couple tools every month and does that. You can find that on the web page. Hope co-builders, we got to build out our social media, some of our distribution, the marketing, the Facebook social media. We need help on that. So if you're available to help build, enter into the database information, and that'd be really great. And if you're a hope builder and you want to partner, like with Wendy, who was up here earlier, I was able to get a grant, and she developed out a lot of our adoration curriculum, which she did an amazing job. And I was able to do that. I was able to get a grant from somebody to be able to give Heidi Baker and Roland 10,000 adoration books for their kids a few years in a row. So, any way you can help, that'd be awesome. Just go to our webpage, and these Friday nights, and this one was more informative about just what we're going to do and getting to know God and proclaiming God in this next season, developing our spiritual muscles, and our prophetic gift to visit and go to heaven and see from a different place. What was I going to say? Just Oh, man, I got some good stuff in here we didn't get through, but we're going to speak to you and individuals on this call about who, is being called to who, where in the divine symphony. And just even in these next 90 days, I'm proclaiming, and, I might ask Wayne to write somebody, give them their address prophetically, and, just give them an opportunity to come up to their full height and capacity in the spirit versus they're walking in a way that's causing them to walk. They're not walking, they're sliding along, and they're doing some real bad things. And so when you release the light into the dark places with kindness, you're giving the people, the fishermen. Jeremiah 14, it says, fisherman comes and tries to fish you out private many times if you got an issue. But when he can't get to you, he goes for the public. And then you're disgraced. And, you can always bounce back, but it's just not, it's tough, and you don't want to do that. So, so I love you. And any questions or comments? Wayne, standing before kings, it's I really appreciate that. Wayne said you'll be stand before kings. It's Exodus 8 time for what's happening. And Exodus 8 is the gnats, when they try to release the plague of the gnats. But the finger of the Lord came, and the gnats are like the little foxes that spoil the vine, but I lived in Zimbabwe, and the gnats were all over me, mosquitoes. And you have to have this gnat at night to keep you from them buzzing around your head. And the magicians got tired, and they couldn't curse the people anymore, and then not that way. And so it's prophetic that they're wearing out, the enemies. We're not wearing out. We're gaining grace because we're Psalms 131. We're not haughty nor proud with our head on his chest. We decree with him a city, Psalms 132. We do it the Psalms 133 way in harmony with our brothers. And then we do what he asks us to do. It's real simple. And so we shouldn't get tired. And, but we, I will, I've had kings and others get a hold of me, and, as high up as they get in the government, but they want me to send them a prophetic word a certain way, to format it a certain way, and that. And honestly, I had all that help 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but then I laid it down just with my health. And so if you could just pray for a scribe that is really available and I can really trust. And because Kua stepped in, helped me with corporate words, Bob Fraser has, but there's more for the kings and queens where it's just kind of, I get a template. Now, I'm not going to make a mistake with them. By that, I'm going to spend a little time and format it right. So, but I thank you, because that is happening. And I didn't know you were from Bulawayo. Yeah, that's where we're at, Bulawayo. We're on the Farm of Reconciliation, New Adams Farm. And I can't remember. I was there a long time, too. I'll remember it. But, so right outside of Bulawayo, and they're all killed, and you've heard about it, I imagine. Hilmar, I believe that you're to write someone in our nation an appeal for one of these freedoms. And I think that it's really significant that you honor our nation, and that there's some others in Iceland that do that. And then I believe that you'll be one of the first recipients of the grace of God that's released due to the pen of your own hand. You get a role in this. And Nanette, I appreciate you just seeing the amazing gifts of freedom the Lord has given in us to just cherish them. It's better than getting a Studebaker for Christmas, right? Studebakers. So, love you guys. Thank you, Fran. I want to encourage those that have been on the Hope family. Just there's ones that don't come on, and I kind of know it when they're, I need to change the format a little bit and maybe, decree and get to the point, but I'll know that when some are struggling and just it's hard time and they are having the gnats. So let's reach out to other people and love them and decree over them that we've seen on this list. We might provide less. So love you guys, and I'll just be talking to you later. And Kua, you're awesome, and we're going to really make an awesome word. And Robert, you're coming into a new expression of your faith and confidence and hope. Be with us uniquely in the next 90 days, because it's going to be training and focus and prayer, hope prayer, where the barking dogs of doubt can't hit you about you, about your place, and about your ministry calling. So, and Sonia, you're to help lead us, and just really, you just got a voice, and you're like little Betty Sue or Cindy Lou Whoville, just to remind them who they are and shout, "We are here," and just shout and write a poem. Jimmy Yoon, I was praying you'd be on, and I got it again. Jimmy Yoon will be singing a new tune. I just love and hope in our nation and be somebody that will really be able to speak. You, Jimmy, you've always been able to speak about what you appreciate. And, you've gotten some challenges, hard time to see sometimes, but you can see it. And you're going to bless the many, even when you're in need. And they're going to bless you back. Sally Brown, you'll be on here every time because you know how to door and you know how to open the door for others. And you're a core. And you also get to know how to decree. So love you. And we need the 3 scribing angels, Hilmar as well, to help just translate the words of the Lord. And I love that you're doing the Gospel of John. One thing the Lord did was take me into different scriptures, and it's like 40 pages, the encounter with Moses. And when it's, edited down, it's just going to be juicy for people. As I just get wild by him, I get so empowered to see and be healed. And so Anne is our matriarch in the spirit that speaks life to each one of us. And this is her opportunity to see people that are challenged, but they're open to be able to be strengthened. And I just want to see Jay and Joy, all of us be strengthened together. I just, we're a small group that we can really know each other and love each other, and we're going to build for years together. So, Fran, we are praying for that just legitimate folks to be counted. And, we're praying because just if there's corruption, there is, that the boxes would be found. We're sending angels to do that the collaborators would confess. And, the head of Biden's transition team said they were, that or ahead of his new group he's trying to put in. His leaders that said the Ivory election's fixed in 2014. Then he, said that he stood by it. Then later he said it was for the benefit of the sitting president, which really wasn't his meaning, if you know the context. So we just need people to speak their minds and us just to clean up this policy and procedure. And so that's it. So Ben, the bountiful one, bountiful life, keep in the overflow and know whether you, like Bob Jones said, whether you take a nap or raise the dead, the pay is the same. That you don't have to be bound by time. It's you can go back in the spirit, go forward. Your day can be like 1,000 years. So everything will be revealed, Wendy. Like, but we wanted people to come and us to forgive them if they come with, tender repentance and they've seen him, and we want to forgive them. And we want people to be established in their original design. That doesn't mean there might not be consequences, but it's just really important. This is an important time for how we carry ourselves, and we can carry ourselves in love. And some of us could have gotten challenged in our better nature, and it was hard not to, but that's okay. Let's just move forward. Kish, I don't know you. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about yourself in the comments. And I might have met you before. I just got something that the Lord's hit me with for you, and I just like to pray through it and just leave us a little more comment. Encourage everybody to get the Hope DVDs. This is what we need, and really train us well. Boy, it's just 8 DVDs for about 30 minutes. Really touching, explains why hope, what is a hope center. So I encourage you to get that. Okay, I've talked enough. Love you all. It's hard to get away from you because I so enjoy you. Okay, spread this. We'll do clips where the significant parts are there. We just want to get a linear process down on how we're going to follow and enter into the pattern of the Lord for this time. So, Jay, good night. Get some good rest, and love you. And everybody else, if anybody took any good notes or like review, please send them on. Oh, the new shirts. Yes, Ann. We got some shirts, and that's just like, this is Heart of Adoration. It's beautiful, but Hope shirts. Hope, don't mope. And I encourage everybody to get one thing. Give hope this winter. And I there's a sample discount, and so I'd pass that on to everybody. So thank you, Akuama. Get some good rest. And there's amazing designs. So go on there, and the sweatshirts, we got the real nice ones, so they're a little more expensive than the shirts, but it was really the good stuff. And so I told Kayla, let's get some of the little ruggeder, more stuff that costs less. So us less than you guys. So love you. Blessings to everybody, like Ben said. Good night.